My wife Jessica and I just had a new song come out on Friday, and for today's episode, we wanted to share the story behind Shasta. Welcome to Sounds to Live By, the show that helps you write genuine songs that benefit and connect with others. I'm your host, Kevin Keene, and this is episode 13. For today's episode, I want to break down my new song, Shasta, not just because of some egotistical, I want you to listen to my music thing, but it's top of mind and it'll be easy for me to pick apart some of the reasons I wrote this song and kind of discuss the different elements that go into it. Before we dive in, if you have not yet grabbed my Killer Melody checklist, go to soundstoliveby.com/checklist. Grab that now. It's going to help you write better melodies. This video is going to have a couple different parts today. First, you're going to see a video of my wife and I discussing the inspiration behind this song, where it came from, the story behind it, so you can better understand why it is that we wrote it. And then I'm going to play the song for you to listen to. And then if you stick around after that, you're a real listener. You're the faithful few. If you stick through all of that, I'm going to break down the song and talk about the different elements that went into it, why I wrote it the way I did, and maybe it'll help give you some insight on ways you can review and critique your own songs. So here's the first portion, my beautiful wife Jessica and I talking about the story behind Shasta. Hello, I'm Kevin, and this is my wife, Jessica.
Hello.
And today we're at the beautiful Red Barn studio where we want to talk about our new song, Shasta. So Shasta is inspired by a book written by C.S. Lewis called The Horse and His Boy. It's part of the Chronicles of Narnia series, if you've seen those movies or read those books. One day, Jessica is with our girls listening to this book on audiobook. Mm-hmm. And here's this section of the story, which I'll talk about in a second. But when I got home, she's like, you have to listen to this. You have to, read this book. And so we started talking about it as a family. Pretty much the story goes that this boy, Shasta, is born and he is shipwrecked and he is found by this man who's a fisherman that's not kind. He's a hard, cruel man. He gives Shasta a place to live, but his entire life is labor and just no affection, no caring. He grows up in a hard environment. And because it's C.S. Lewis, there's a talking horse. If you haven't seen the Chronicles of Narnia, you won't understand. There are talking animals. But the horse and Shasta run away together because the horse was owned by a master that he didn't care for. So they're on this journey together to get back to Narnia, to get back to where the horse is from and to their home. And so throughout the story, Shasta is met with all sorts of terrible circumstances. He's chased by a lion. He is trying to sleep out by the fire one night, and he hears the sounds of these jackals all around, and he's afraid for his life. Towards the end of the story, he is trying to reach this kingdom to warn them of an invading army, and another lion chases them and slashes one of the horses, and they barely get away. And so towards the end of the book, Shasta is walking through the woods. He's kind of in that place where in every good story the hero is just like about to give up. It is looking bad, it is looking bleak, and he is just at his wit's end when suddenly he just senses this presence that is right there, and he's aware that something is walking beside him. What he comes to realize is that it's Aslan. So in the Chronicles of Narnia story, Aslan is the Jesus character, the God character. He's a lion, he's a massive lion. And he always presents himself at times when he is needed. So in the second book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is probably the most famous of the Chronicles of Narnia, like Jesus, he gives his life. He sacrifices his life to break the curse that this evil witch has over Narnia, to restore it back to the state that it was meant to be in. And the story ends with he resurrects, he comes back from the dead, and everything is made right. And so Aslan is the Christ character in the Chronicles of Narnia allegory. So back to Shasta, he meets Aslan. He realizes there's a massive lion walking beside me. He doesn't know who Aslan is at the time, and Aslan begins to describe who he is, and that he is for Shasta, he's good, he is loving. But then Shasta poses the question, well, if you are so good, where have you been my whole life? I've been through terrible circumstances. I could have used you a long time ago. I needed you to show up before now. Why now are you showing up? And it's at this point that Aslan says, I was the lion that was chasing you to help push you to get you where you needed to go. Mm-hmm. I was the lion around that campfire fighting off the jackals so that you could make it through the night. I was the lion that was there when you needed me to though you didn't understand, to push you where you needed to go. And I was the lion that pushed your boat to shore that night when you were shipwrecked so that you could be found and at least taken care of long enough to grow into where you are today, to make it to me. And so it's just this beautiful story. Mm-hmm. As C.S. Lewis, we can't take full credit for this song because it was so heavily inspired by this story. We just put it to music. But it's just a story of God's redemption, that he's always there, even when we don't feel like he's there. In fact, the times where we are like, God is definitely not here, even then he is there. Yes. And he's moving our life and circumstances to push us to always make it back to him, to find a way to get back into his presence, to have an encounter with him, to know who he is, and so he can reveal the truth of what maybe we are not able to see at the time, but is his love and his goodness all along. Right. And so that's what this song is about. That's what we hope that this song conveys as people listen to it, is the love of a father that even in the dark times, even in the hard times, and in the seasons where it just feels like nothing else could possibly go wrong, not only is he not absent, he is part of the story with you. He is there with you. And even the dark things that seem like they're attacking you, he's somehow, there's a verse in Psalm that says, even darkness is light to you. Talking about God, that there is nothing outside of his ability to bring light into the situation. That darkness is not an equal power to light. Mm-mm. Darkness is completely obliterated by light. And what we want with this song is to spread a message that there is always hope. Even in your darkest season, there is always hope, that God is always there, and that he has the ultimate best intentions for you. You just have to sometimes walk out your story. Don't give up. Keep walking. Shasta kept going through this journey until he had the ability to understand not only who God really was for him, but who he really was and who God had created him to be, and that it was all part of this beautiful story. So that's what this song's about.
I think it's helped me a lot as, just hearing people's stories and hearing things that happen in the world and all these terrible things. It's like I've had, people ask me, well, if God's so good, then why does, this happen or whatever? And this story has really helped me realize, one, we are finite and we don't understand all of the enormous things of the universe and creation and God and the vastness of all of these things. And so to think that I can understand why everything happens is just it's just naive and youthful, and it's human nature to want to understand. But for me, this song has given me so much, just this big picture trust again, this sovereignty of man, I am so small in this whole story of existence, and I accept the fact that I don't know all the answers and I can't control everything, but I trust. There's a line in the song, and this is C.S. Lewis again, it's not us, but he says that Aslan, or Christ, is not safe, but he's good. And I love that because it kind of shakes you up, because you're like, wait, God's not safe? And it's kind of like, well, no, like the spirit realm life, like stuff happens. Like there will be things on this earth that we experience that is darkness. Like that is not good. And that's not like, it's not this like insurance policy of safety, but he's good. Meaning I know that all things are working together. And if I keep this like innocent, just this like, man, I trust that you know more than me. There's another part in that book that the boy is saying to Aslan, well, what about the horse, like his friend? Well, like essentially like, why did she have such a hard life? And why, what, you know, that you didn't seem that good in that story.
Part of when they were running away, the lion slashed the horse, injured the horse. And so Shasta was like, what about that? That's not good.
So good.
Like, why'd you have to do that?
And his response is just like, he just told the boy, he said, that's her story. Essentially, like, I do not have to justify myself to you and explain all of it to you. I will tell you what you need to know when you need to know it. Just trust. And this song, this whole story, just the big picture of ultimately the creator of all of this is good. And I trust that. I trust that if I'm in that awareness of him and his goodness, then all things are working together for our good.
Right.
And just to keep that in mind, and to not always think that if something's going wrong that it's necessarily like our fault or whatever. I mean, sometimes it is, but just that this whole song of, man, I really thought, God, that you weren't even real. Like, I've been so hurt, and you know, people talk about how good God is, and it's like, I'm not feeling that. This whole, like, the climax of the story where it all comes to a head of just like, oh my gosh, you are as good as they say you are. It just didn't look the way that I thought it was going to.
Right. So you might be in the part of your story where you hadn't had that encounter yet to have that understanding. So our encouragement is to keep walking.
Yep.
Keep living. Don't give up. Keep moving forward. And if there is, you know, if you need to talk, email us. Like, we'd love to hear your story. Just email kevinkeen@gmail.com, KIEHN. If you feel like you don't understand who God is and how things could happen in your life, we'd love to talk to you and just, you know, not that we have the answers, but our mission is always to spread hope and life and light. And in the world we live in right now, where there's so much bad news all the time, there's so much tragedy going on, there's so much opportunity to let the dark overwhelm the light. We want to make sure we're always not turning away and turning a blind eye to the things in the world that are terrible, but always emphasizing the light and giving opportunity for the light to be made manifest, for God to be known, for Jesus to be made manifest, for his word and his story to be told, so that light can be spread. So,
and it's all so much sweeter than I think
it is.
We realize.
It is.
It can, I know, like, even just, there are so many people that their story, like just the words God and Jesus are like, ugh, because it's associated with so much hurt and pain. And my whole thing is like, that was never him. Like, if your experience with when people just bring up God or spirituality, if it's like a yucky hurt, pain, ugh, I want nothing to do with that. In my experience, it's because then there is yet to be the actual experience of God.
Right.
So much of us have gotten hurt by like church or Christians, or, you know, that whole Shasta story, like all of these like circumstances that want to just like cloud our innocence to be like, yeah, none of that's real. But if you can just crawl out of that hurt and be like, I'm willing to be vulnerable enough to just say, like, I want to be loved, I want to be seen, and I want to be known and belong, you'll find that in the one that created you. So for me, this song is so that, like, just that, like, breaking down walls and dealing with hurt and truth and, like, the freedom, the sweet, like, peace of, like, oh my God, you are good.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. We hope this has been beneficial to you. Keep following our journey as we release music. We want it to be bettering and giving back to the world at large. So,
Yeah.
see you
Thanks,
next
guys.
time. So there you go. There's the story behind Shasta. We are inspired by stories of faith and stories about who God is, and really taking the faith that we believe in and putting it into music form. And so that is the background of what inspired us to write the song Shasta. If you haven't heard it yet, I'm going to play it right now so you can hear it. Here's the song Shasta.
I started life out shipwrecked, drifting in a sea of darkness, only to be found by a hard and cruel man. I ran away with hopes of freedom, but was chased by every demon. Lay countless nights awake to the jackal's house. Who could love me now? Who could love me now? Oh, who could love me now? Who could love me now? And while stumbling through the darkness, I swore I sensed a presence, familiar and strange at the same time. I said, won't you show yourself to me? Are you beast or are you beauty? Let's get it over with, I got nothing to hide. So let me see you now. Let me see you now. Oh, let me see you now. Let me see you now. By your appearance I was arrested, not the form that I expected. I could tell you were not safe, but you were good. I said, my life has been one long night. You could have broke the dawn, you could have made it light. Why did you hide yourself from me this whole time? You said I was the one fighting off the jackal so you can make it through the night. I was the one, I was the one, I was the one chasing you down so you can make it out alive. I was the one, I was the one, I was the one that helped you run away for your chance at a better life. I was the one, I was the one, I was the one that pushed your boat to shore so a hard man could keep you alive. I was the one, I was the one, I was the one fighting off the jackal so you could make it through the night. I was the one, I was the one, I was the one chasing you down so you could make it out alive. I was the one, I was the one, I was the one that helped you run away for your chance at a better life. I was the one, I was the one, I was the one that pushed your boat to shore so a hard man could keep you alive and you could get some air.
So there it is. I hope you liked it. It was a special song to my wife and I. We love this song. In fact, it was one of those songs when I first wrote it, the first couple times I played it live, I cried. That's embarrassing to admit because I've never done that before. I've never cried while playing a song. It was really awkward. No band backing me. I just started crying. I guess that means it really meant something to me, but you don't want to cry through your own song. This song was interesting because I wrote it in 15-minute increments. I was doing a little test on my creative process while I wrote, and I decided I'm going to take 15-minute breaks every hour and write. And then I'm going to stop and go back to work, and then after another hour, I'd spend 15 minutes writing and make myself stop and so on and so forth. And in a couple days, I wrote this song, and it was interesting because I wrote it that way. It was also heavily inspired by the C.S. Lewis book, so a lot of the story and the content was already given. So when you're writing based on inspiration, it's a little bit easier, especially if it's an existing storyline. So the first thing I want to comment on is obviously the minimal instrumentation. I didn't want too much in this song distracting away from the story. And the story itself is very colorful. And the lyrics are very descriptive. There's a lot of description in the lyrics, so I didn't want to muddy that with a lot of instrumentation that distracts away from what I want the listener's mind to be creating while they're listening. I want them to hear it, and they're kind of making this whole world in and of themselves. Something I want you to recognize and notice about the choruses lyrically is that you have the same syllable, roughly the same syllable count, but it's a constant progression. So the first chorus is, "Who could love me now?" The second chorus is, "Let me see you now." And then the final chorus is, "Let me love you now." Progressional statements throughout songs are pretty powerful because it gives the listener a place to latch onto, but then it gives enough new information each time that for whatever reason, I don't know the brain science behind this, but for whatever reason, it makes each of those statements more memorable because they follow the same syllable pattern, the same melodic pattern. But now instead of one chorus, you're getting three choruses stuck in their head, and the meaning between all of those three play off of each other in that progressional way. So you've got, "Who could love me?" Someone that's hopeless, that's not understanding. How could they possibly be loved? The final chorus is God telling Shasta, or the listener realizing God is telling them. He's saying, "Let me love you." And then right in the middle, you have "Let me see." So the listener's understanding this progression of between hopelessness and understanding that I'm loved. There has to be a point in the middle of some kind of revelatory moment. Let me see something I'm not seeing. And so those simple phrases can do so much. If you can write a chorus line that's very simple, that's short, not many words, and a repeating melody, it helps the listener can latch onto that a lot closer, a lot more clearly. Something else I want to point out is that the verse lyrics, there's a lot of lyrics. It's very wordy. Started life out shipwrecked. Like there's a lot of lyrics. And so the chorus, I had to make sure the chorus was very simple. "Who could love me?" 4 words. Now. "Who could love me now?" 5 words. You know, it would be bad to leave a lyric heavy verse and go into a lyric heavy chorus, because you're going to lose people. They're not going to be able to follow that intense amount of lyrical content over the course of the song. The bridge is also very wordy, so even more important that the choruses are simple. So those are the first things that I want to point out off the top of my head. So as you listen through, recognize those things: the simplicity of the choruses, the progressional pattern lyrically of the choruses, but how they stay melodically the same and the syllables are the same, and then the simple instrumentation. Something else I want to point out is on the bridge. So the bridge is that revelatory moment whenever Shasta meets Aslan and he's saying, "Where were you when I needed you?" And then Aslan is saying, "I was the one." So at that moment, I wanted the instrumentation and the arrangement to kind of bottom out. I want this, like, I even have that timpani hit in there. It's just this, I want attention to be drawn to the lyric. So again, I don't want to bring in some kind of heavy instrumentation there because I want everything to be focused on the story. And you have to be aware of those moments when you write. You have to be aware of not having the instrumentation or the arrangement of the song or the band that you're playing with take away from those lyrical moments, those emotional moments where you need to suck the energy out of it, maybe even a silence at points. And so that's just something to keep in mind, is you want to steer away from stealing the moment away from your lyric and melody. There's times where it needs to really stand out. And I think the last thing that I'll say is try to resist overdoing the instrumentation on certain songs. There's some songs where you want to add, this song I wanted to add more percussion, more drum type beat arrangements, and it just, more rhythm, it just didn't work. So don't feel like you have to overdo it when you get to an instrumentation or arrangement phase of your song. Anytime you move past your voice and one instrument and you're getting into more of production, try not to overdo it. Try to let the song speak for itself and only add elements that are going to aid in the storytelling or aid in the mood and the feel of the song without detracting away from its ability to connect with the listener in its own merit. So that's all I've got. That's the story behind Shasta, and then some of the songwriting principles I used to write this song. Let me know what you think about the song. I'd love your feedback. And then also give me ideas of songs that I can critique on here. Send me your favorite song, and let's break down why it's good. Or send me a song that you're like, I can't stand this song and I don't know why. We can break down why it's not good. Send me your song. If you want your song critiqued on a Sounds to Live By video, if you're okay with constructive criticism, I would never be mean or cruel with a song critique, but we may draw out some problem areas. If you're comfortable with that, send me your song. I'll pick one out of all the songs that are sent, and we'll do a song review on one of these episodes. So let me know what you got. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, like this video, comment below with other songs that we can critique or pick apart. And then if you're listening on podcasts, please give me a 5-star review. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Give me some ideas for some other episodes. I want to help you as a songwriter. And then if you have not yet grabbed my Killer Melody Checklist, go to soundstoliveby.com/checklist and get that now. It'll help you write better melodies. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.